How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.
Sunday afternoons in IPL season, get yourselves a cup of coffee if you've woken up late after a Saturday night and prepare for double-header cricket. We're at Visakhapatnam for the afternoon build-up to the Delhi Capitals against the Sunrisers Hyderabad, the invincible Sunrisers Hyderabad that aren't invincible anymore. They lost their last game. Capitals have started well. This should be a good one. This is Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout. That's a long name, but you must remember the name of the show. He hates it. He absolutely hates that reference. But welcome back, Vish. It's a homecoming for you. It's always nice to have you here at Cricket Info.
My life is now fulfilled being back with you, Raunak.
Could you say that a bit louder, Vish?
My life is now fulfilled being with you once again.
Thank you. I heard it the first time. I just wanted to hear it again. Absolute pleasure to have the wonderful Ian Bishop with us, who, of course, has been on the IPL caravan. And I hope, Bish, there's enough coffee to keep you going.
Half a cup will do for now.
Okay. And Matt Roller's back. Who gave you a day off yesterday? Matt, I missed you.
Well, there I was. Suddenly, I rolled out of bed this morning and came down here, in which time Ian Bishop's gone from commentating on the world feed, flying in from Ahmedabad and getting himself here. So, he's the most hard-working man in cricket media, near enough. And
yes.
I'm very much in his shade.
Yeah, and in comparison, Matt's telling me yesterday, when I said, how was your day off? When I met him at the studio, Puji says, well, I was still doing a little bit of work. I said, we all do that. You think on Bishop's day off, he's at the spa or something. He's got his laptop and iPad on. He's working on notes for the next day. Puji is a hard worker as well. You were not in good company if you weren't.
I'm still learning, Raunak. You gotta give me the credit as a young man.
Don't play the kids face thing when it suits you, right? Knowledge, wealth of knowledge that you do possess. Very interesting news, Puji, from Visakhapatnam, that the first team to win the toss and bat first has been seen. That is Sunrisers Hyderabad in an afternoon fixture. Your thoughts?
I'm a little surprised. Honestly, in an afternoon game, you expect ball to hold a bit more because of the weather. And then as the game progresses in the evening time, I think the ball might skid on a bit more. So I'm a little surprised, but we'll also have to look at the pitch. We don't know about the pitch yet, but I still feel it could help Delhi Capitals because they have good spinners. If they bowl well, if they can restrict SRH below 180, then they can chase it down.
Yeah. Do you sense, Bish, in the first 8-9 games, we thought after what happened last season, we're going to see everyone smash 270, 280, we thought 300 is a possibility. But some of the storylines have been about bowling teams coming prepared, finding ways to restrict these teams that expect to come hard, like the Sunrisers Hyderabad, and whether that's been something that's refreshing to see in the opening week or so of the IPL for you, that bowlers are coming better prepared.
No, I think it's always refreshing because so much of the conversation, even Cheteshwar Pujara the other day said they should call it batting instead of cricket. Yeah. That's how much he was sort of leaning to that narrative. But we saw bowling teams go death bowling early against Sunrisers Hyderabad. We saw teams fly out of the blocks like KKR in the first 10 overs, get restricted in the back 10. And bowlers, they're an evolving species. As soon as the batters go ahead, they find a way within a year or two to strike back. So I think it's good for the game, and more so when something is left in the pitch, whether it's spin, seam, or bounce, the bowlers are coming back into it. So you don't want a homogeneous nature to every game.
Yeah, I mean, Lucknow showed in the last game. You can come prepared to keep Sunrisers Hyderabad quiet. I wonder what today's game means for the Sunrisers in terms of responding. Matt Roller, you said, I think at the end of that Sunrisers defeat, how will they respond? They'll probably come even harder today.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting. You're right. I suppose the makeup of that side, you look at the players in the top 6 or 7, they are an attacking bunch of guys, but there is also some adaptability. You have a couple of overseas players in Travis Head and Heinrich Klaassen who have had success across formats, and Klaassen obviously more recently in 50-over cricket specifically. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how they cope with that challenge, because I think that Delhi attack is actually pretty strong on paper. Obviously, they did go around the houses against Lucknow, but you think about if you were constructing an ideal bowling attack to come up against Travis Head as a bowling captain, you'd like Mitchell Starc in there with the new ball, and you'd like a left-arm wrist spinner in there, and they've probably got the world's best in Kuldeep Yadav. So
I like it.
I think it could be a really interesting little tactical battle today.
I think the bowlers who will be under pressure today will be Mukesh Kumar and Mohit.
Mukesh and Mohit, yeah, right.
Because both of them, if they end up bowling in the power play, then against Abhishek and Travis Head, it will be a big challenge for them.
This is so interesting when you play the Sunrisers Hyderabad, what your bowling plans are. For now, let's give you the big news from the Capitals front. Welcome back, KL Rahul, to the IPL. Congratulations to the family, into the team. Listed at 4, something we were contemplating in this team, whether Rahul will play a middle order role and also given the gloves as per the team sheet. So Abhishek Paul will probably be seen in the field. We'll find that out in just a little while from now in the Capitals Bowl. But Puji, this is a big return, main ticket player at the back of a Champions Trophy performance. Do we expect to see almost a unburdened, unshackled KL Rahul this season?
He will be a bit more relaxed. The way he has been batting recently across formats, he batted well in Test series against Australia. That also helps in the shorter format, because when you start performing well in the longer format, that confidence you take it into the shorter format, and even the performance of Champions Trophy, that will definitely help him. But at the same time, I would still prefer to see him bat at number 3 rather than at number 4, because he's someone I know he can bat in the middle overs, but I still feel if he can bat up the order, it will help the team.
You saw that Champions Trophy performance as well, and we know the story on KL Rahul. He doesn't find himself among India's T20 favourites right now, Bish, but do you see a player who has matured, who's at a perhaps different stage of his career where we may just see the best of him at a new franchise?
I think he'll be challenged. I think for me as a player, and Cheteshwar could probably speak to it as well, when you have a sort of a new team, you want to prove yourself once again. So I'm hoping that's the challenge that he will accept. And I really enjoyed him in that Champions Trophy. I love the confidence, the responsibility that he took on. So I could see him playing a flexible role. He seemed to want to carry a lot of the burden at LSG. But I also want to see the KL Rahul that we know is flamboyant, who can strike the ball as far as anyone in and amongst that group there.
Does he need to adapt to a different style of batting now, moving the middle order of IPL franchise? I mean, on an average, KL's a 130, 140 striking player on an average. Yeah. He now has to tick the box of being a 150, 160 player, which is what the demands are, and he's got to do it in a new position. How does he adjust?
I think he can do it. It's just that when he was playing for the other franchise last season, I felt that there was a bit more pressure on him, and he felt that he had to carry the bat through. He had to bat at least first 15 overs. Now if he's batting in the middle overs, he knows that he can start scoring runs from first ball onwards, and which he can. It's just about having that freedom mentally rather than thinking about he has to bat through. It's just the gear change which he needs to do, and
that's
more
hard,
than capable.
That's the hardest part, isn't it? So many players have tried, and yet that gear change is what finds them undone. Is it fair to say, especially those who bat up top?
I'd say two things with that. Firstly, he has experience across formats of batting in the middle order. If you think when he first came into IPL or first sort of really thrived in IPL, it was at RCB. And you know, was very much a fast scorer. Obviously, we're going back to sort of 2016, I think, now here. But that was a role that he's done before. He's obviously batted at 5 in ODIs for a long period of time. I think one of the other things that we've not mentioned yet is, you know, at LSG, half his games he was playing in Lucknow, which is one of the hardest grounds to bat on, I think, in the league in terms of if you look at average scores. You think of those black soil pitches that they quite often play on where the ball does turn sharply. It's quite a challenge, whereas Delhi tends to be completely the other way around. It's been one of the highest scoring venues. Obviously, they're playing in Vizag today, but that too has been a very high scoring ground, and I think we're looking at sort of 60-metre square boundaries today. So I think it could be something that really works for him, that change in role, that new phase in his career. I think he turns 33 next month. We
can weigh in, because the adjustment isn't something that happens instantly. I think even Josh Butler, the great Josh Butler batting outside of the power play, it's like he's cooking towards getting to his best as against exactly the same kind of impact.
I think Josh, to be honest, he was struggling to find his rhythm. I mean, last year when he scored 200s, outside of the 200s, he averaged 16. So the fluency wasn't naturally there. Post last year's IPL, he started to look himself again. So, look, I don't think it's too hard for guys in their 30s, as Joss and KL Rahul are. And they're in a good groove as well. I think it's more the mindset. And Chetty mentioned at that LSG team, I mean, you had Nicholas Puran.
That's the other example I was going to give in. I actually want him to bat exactly like Pura. And I wonder if that's possible for a batter. Because as far as ability goes, he's got it.
If KL decides if he can, if he wants to bat like Nicholas Puran, he can. He has the ability. It's just the mental, it's the mindset where even if he gets out in a couple of innings, that's fine. He just have to accept it that I might get out if I'm playing like that. But when he gets going, no one can stop him.
Just as a reminder, in that Champions Trophy, he played a couple of innings. And just at the back end of the innings, to close out a couple of those games, he was striking the ball so easily, well beyond the boundary. And that was like the old KL Rahul, the guy who scored that T20 100 in England a few years ago. So it's stored up. It's up here.
Yeah. Is it a good thing he's not captain, do you sense, in some ways, for this particular year and period in Rahul's life and career?
I agree, because there was a lot of pressure, as I was mentioning earlier. Last year, it wasn't just his batting, but it was also his leadership. When he was leading the team, there was a lot of pressure. But now, since he's not the captain, he can play with a lot of freedom, not to think about other aspects in the dressing room. He can be himself. He is a team player, so obviously he will chip in whenever there's any help needed for Akshar. But at the same time, he can bat with a lot of freedom and without worrying about anything else.
All right, let's have a look at the Sunrisers team, shall we? They're batting first, as Pat Cummins says, and they've given first appearance to the 25-year-old leg spinner, Zishan Ansari from Uttar Pradesh. Has played for the under-19s and picked up, I guess, as a result of his exploits in the Uttar Pradesh T20 League. So we will find out what he's made of, and they've named still just the 3 overseas. So they will have the option of Adam Zampa, maybe Rayan Mulder or Ishan Malinga, all on the bench. That's interesting though, because Rahul Chahar did go there. I don't know if there's any injury to the more experienced leg spinner, but they've gone with Zishan Ansari. Anything that you know of Zishan Ansari?
Honestly, not much.
Right.
But I think that pitch, what it suggests is that if they haven't picked Rahul, the reason is he hasn't been performing really well in last couple of seasons.
Right.
It's not that he is not capable enough, but most of the franchises are backing the young players. If they see some potential in the younger players, they don't mind backing them.
They're also keeping the option open, aren't they, of their overseas? Otherwise, we thought Zampa's a sure shot with the team they were picking. Today, they might want to have a look at 20 overs and see if they need the seamer, they need the extra lower order hitter if you want to bring in Mulder.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what we're also seeing, which is great from Sunrisers, is them backing these young Indian players who are emerging from state T20 leagues. Someone like Aniket Verma obviously showed us what he can do in the last game. And then Zishan Ansari, I think, has only played 1 professional T20 game, but has obviously played some T20 leagues.
That's only because we don't log all those other leagues that we're playing. We're overworked like you.
But it says something about their scouting, doesn't it? If they're willing to go out there and take a punt on young talent, I think that's obviously one of the great bits of IPL, is getting to learn more and see these young players performing under pressure and with all the eyeballs on them that maybe aren't there in a state T20 league. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes on debut.
Yeah, I mean, just one more thing to point out in that Delhi team is that Ashutosh Sharma, the hero of the last game, is on the impact bench. So just in case we missed that for you, Ashutosh, we expect, will have a role to play almost certainly. It will be Samir Rizvi who's had to make way for KL Rahul from that thrilling opening game that these two teams had, that Delhi had at Visakhapatnam. Right, that is team news for you from this game. Now, let's get into the big hitters. We are expecting almost a non-stop hitting with the lineup we have in place. Abhishek Sharma, Travis Head, Andrew Klassen, Jake Fraser-McGurk, Tristan Stubbs, potentially Ashutosh as well. I think Sanjay Bangar said at the pitch report that he expects it to keep a bit low. Is that something you associate with Visakhapatnam? And are we still realistically going to see 500 plus runs today?
I don't think so.
No?
If Delhi is smart, they will try and keep the pitch on the slower side. They've got good spinners. We saw last night Gujarat, they purposefully played on a slower pitch. And I think Delhi can do the same thing. We don't know the pitch yet. From the distance, it looked like it was a good surface. But if it stays low, if there is not enough pace on the pitch, then it will work in favor of Delhi.
It's interesting you say keep it slow because they have good spinners. Raidu was saying the other day that when you slow the pitch and you have good spinners, you bring lesser spinners of the opposition into the game. You'd much rather have flat pitches and the better spinners as a package. That's what I do.
Well, you can look at that another way as well. I mean, if spin is your strength, these flat pitches are really flat, and everyone will travel against good batters. So I think it's what I want to see is how you said they might go harder. It could also be the case that they just have to tweak their batting just a little bit if they lose a couple of wickets up front. So all of this talk about 300 barrier being broken, I think Pat Cummins would be well within his right to say, guys, that's outside noise. So we have a really good team here. If we play our best brand of cricket and play smart, we could be one of the favourites to win this year.
That last line of play smart. Now, this is where we'd like to break down the Sunrisers, where they got 190 in the last game, but clearly they were outsmarted by the opposition. And whether there is some kind of balance to be struck to make sure that they don't go so hard that they actually keep the opposition in the game then eventually.
I think they will have to, but another discussion is the brand of cricket which they want to play. I don't think they are going to change it, but as we are discussing, they have to be little smart, but I don't think they will go on the defensive side, because that's the mindset which they have, that even if they end up losing a game by playing aggressive cricket, by putting pressure on the bowlers, they will try and do that. But yeah, you always need a right balance, and we'll find out. It also depends on the pitch.
I think being smart though doesn't mean. So you played in a Kings 11 team with George Bailey and those guys back in the day, which was a forerunner to all of this aggressive batting. And it doesn't mean, as Matt knows, you're going to consolidate a partnership for 5 overs. It might just mean consolidating for 3, 4 balls, 5 balls, and forming a partnership. So being smart doesn't mean blocking the crap out of. Am I allowed to say crap?
Yeah, of course. You're allowed to say it twice.
Out of something for about 6 or 7 overs. It doesn't mean that, but it means if a couple of wickets fall, ensure that it's not bang, 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 and then go again.
Just from a tactical point of view today, I think it will be really interesting as well. I think it will be a real advantage for Sunrisers if they can get 2 of the top 3, or at least 1 of the top 3, into the middle overs of the game. Because if you think about Axar Patel against Lucknow, he was clearly a bit reluctant to bowl himself to the left-handers. And Sunrisers, obviously, we know go 3 left-handers at the top now, with Kishan coming in at 3. So I think it will be one of those things. I'm sure that the top 3 won't go out thinking...
He's got to stop that, Axar, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, quite possibly. I think you've got to be able to have some kind of response.
Saiki Shaw yesterday. Saiki Shaw bowled defensively yesterday across the left-handers.
But as far as track records go, Jadeja has good record against left-handers. Krunal Pandya has good record against left-handers. Axar, not so much. So is it a fair call to actually not bowl himself?
No,
I think it's just the psychology. As a player, sometimes you feel that you can't bowl well against left-handers, but if you keep doing it, and you find a way to bowl against left-handers. So it's just, you will have to be a little more confident and then start doing it.
And actually, the numbers aren't as bad as they could be. I mean, there are some left-arm spinners who do genuinely go the distance all the time against left-handers, but I think going at 9s like Axar has in the past few seasons of IPL, it could be a lot worse. So I think, I think particularly if Sunrisers do get off to a good start, he's got to back himself to find a way to come on and have an impact on the game through the middle against them.
Plus, your guys are sitting in there, all the guys under your charge are thinking, skipper doesn't want to bowl against the left-handers. I mean, how long can you carry that on for, skipper? You don't want to take the hard job, so he's got to man up at some point.
Be brave when your captain set that example. Do you see him bowling in the power play though? Because the use is often in the middle now, because actually created a reputation being a power play bowler about 3 or 4 years ago. That's changed a little bit.
But not against SRS. They've got 3 left-handers. If he's not bowling in the middle overs against left-handers, you can't expect him to bowl in the power play.
This is where, to Bish's point, Akshar would be sitting there and saying, you went and bought Stark and Mukesh and everybody else that he'll list one after the other and say, you expect me to bowl? First up, Mitchell Stark's job is to get rid of Travis Hedge. Set it up, Matt. This is where you earn your money. Yeah,
well, he's got an unbelievable head-to-head record against him, or stuck-to-head record against him, I should say. I think he's dismissed him 5 times.
Let's do that slowly again. That was too quick. I need you to play that joke again.
I said
Let's rewind and go at 1.5x the speed.
Yeah, because I missed.
You missed it, didn't you? Go again, Matt.
I said he has a very good head-to-head record against him, or should I say a start-to-head record against him. I think in T20 cricket, he's only bowled 2 balls to him and got him out once, which everyone will remember from the playoffs last year.
Yes.
But dating back across their professional careers, across formats, it's 5 dismissals and I think 28 balls, and hardly conceded a run off him as well. So it's clearly
this is across formats.
Yeah, and dating back a while, you know, that includes some 50-over cricket in Australia, and you know, I think you can take some of that stuff with a pinch of salt, but I think when it's quite as one-sided a head-to-head matchup as that, I'm sure it's something that both of them will be aware of heading into this game. They've obviously played a lot of cricket together in the past few years in the national team, and I'm sure there'll be a sort of an acknowledgement of it. Whether that results in head blocking out the first over, I somehow doubt, but it will be an interesting thing to see.
Sorry to interrupt, but does that mean Abhishek is likely to take the strike?
But then Abhishek was cleaned up by Stark in the final last year as well, so it's one of these things where...
So you're going to see 2 of them as the non-strikers then, having a chat while Stark's waiting.
I don't think either of them... Are you talking about playing smart? I mean, I'm fascinated to see how Travis does confront that, because Mitch will be full of confidence, obviously, from past history.
Yeah.
But if you're an excellent player and Travis Head is a brilliant player, those are the sorts of challenges that you want to find a way to overcome. And you can't do it to the detriment of the team, but we talked as well about playing smart.
This is an afternoon game, isn't it? Which the last 2 times they faced off each other, it wasn't. There's a little more help for Mitch Stark in the evenings, for whatever it's worth. I am very keen to see what Travis Head does. If he just looks to just nudge it around or straight bat single, I'd love it.
We also saw an Australian opener facing Stark in Delhi's first game, and Mitch Marsh whacked his first ball over mid-wicket with a lovely little flick, actually, off the pads from Stark. So, yeah, I think I always enjoy with overseas players, seeing players from the same country and from the same international team who have played a lot together coming up against one another. And I think it's going to be box office.
Very good. Excellent. Let's now get into who's got the better bowling attack, shall we? Because we expect Visakhapatnam to be high scoring. We expect both these teams to come out hard, as they have done in the little evidence we've got in this season. But as we just look at the resources on either side, and we'll just run through the teams for you again. Delhi on the one hand will look to likely start with Mitchell Stark. Bish, let's run through this and see who's got more teeth, in their bowling. Mukesh Kumar, Mohit Sharma, perhaps in the middle at the end. Vipraj Nigam, along with Kuldeep Yadav, has 2 leggies potentially. Akshar Patel, of course, left of screen. I think we also saw an over of Tristan Stubbs. Not sure if we see that today. But that's the Delhi play. Matt set it up earlier and said that's almost all the kinds of bowling you want in a T20 game. Do you rate that as almost all bases covered?
If they're bowling well and in form, it is good, because you look at someone like Mukesh Kumar, if he's in form and he's in good rhythm, he can swing the ball up front, he can bowl good Yorkers as well, and he has a tough mentality. Mohit Sharma, probably more of a back end of the innings bowler, and Stark has to be at his best. His power play bowling outside of those playoffs last year hasn't been brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's a good attack, but I always preface everything I say on whether they are in form.
Yeah. Do you sense Mukesh could play the role that, say, Prince Yadav played that day? To uncomplicate it?
I think if he's put under pressure, it will be very challenging for him. I think that Delhi doesn't have good fast bowlers. In comparison with SRH, I feel that Delhi has better spinners, whereas SRH has better seamers.
Right.
But if Mohit and Mukesh are put under pressure, then they will have a tough time in this game.
Let's look at those Sunrisers resources. Puji rates the seam bowling to be better, and that is a combination of Pat Cummins, Mohammad Shami, Harshal Patel as your 3 frontline seamers, and they will, presumably, they could add another seamer to their resources once the impact bowling comes in. So if this comes down to a flat wicket contest, now who's got the better resources to keep the opposition quiet? And you're saying the Sunrisers with their seam.
With the seam bowling, I think they have a better chance. But there is a lot of pressure on SRH's batting lineup to put up a decent total, because if it's a flat pitch, they know that 190 wouldn't be enough on that, and then there is pressure of getting to 220, 240. And I'm sure they would have had a chat after the last game that let's not think about getting close to 240 or 250.
Yeah.
Let's try and just bat. And whenever there's as Ian was saying, that if they end up losing 2 or 3 wickets, that's where they will have to be a little smart.
Do they have good defensive bowling skills? Sometimes we look at a team on paper and we think, oh, Shami, wicket taker, and Harshal, oh yeah, he can take wickets as well. And suddenly that defensive guy, the guy who goes none for 29 or 4 and changes the game from a 230 to 200 is in there. Because they've gone for runs, haven't they? Sunrisers in the 2 games so far.
Who doesn't go for runs at some point in this format of the game? You're a hard man. They do have, I would venture to say that at their best they have good defensive bowling skills. Pat Cummins showed, particularly last year, he would run in, he would bowl those slower, short deliveries. He did it in the World Cup final. I didn't mean to say that to anybody out there who's an Indian fan, but that's worth remembering.
Only one guy laughed. Yeah. The non-Indian.
And then Harshal, we've seen with his slower delivery, we've seen with his wide slower delivery, his wide Yorker. So the skills are there. Shami perhaps less so.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's high quality.
They've obviously kept Simarjeet on the bench for a reason. Maybe he was the one they want to try and just work around. Cummins.
Yeah, well, just quickly on the impact side, they clearly have left the options very open because they could go Simarjeet, they could go Zampa, and Malinga's on the bench as well. So there are they can react accordingly to how things go.
Afternoon game, no worry about dues. So you could play another wristy if you think it's worth it.
What I would love to see is Pat Cummins bowling in the power play, because that is something again he hasn't been doing. He's holding himself back for the middle overs. And there are times where young Indian bowlers, someone like Simarjeet, if he can bowl in that middle overs, then he could be even more effective rather than Cummins, who is a bit more experienced.
Having some protection.
Yeah, here's the point. I guess they're looking at Cummins at leaking more runs. Not the greatest power play bowler, but Matt, you could take us through on the evolution of Pat Cummins, the T20 bowler.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting to sort of see how he's gone this season, because obviously it has been a bit of a break since he last played T20 cricket. He was one of very many bowlers who was very expensive in their first game, which was obviously one of the highest scoring IPL games ever. He wasn't the only guy who went around the park. But I thought the interesting thing, and sort of touching on what Puji says there, was in their last game, he came into the attack to bowl the 6th over, at which point LSG were, I think, 66 for 1 or 5, and way ahead of the game already. So even though his numbers are much better in the middle overs, and even though he is a sort of a genuine wicket taker, I think he was second highest wicket taker for SRH last year, you do wonder whether maybe he could have brought himself into the attack just that little bit earlier. And I'd be interested to hear, Bish, actually, what you sort of see as Cummins' strengths as a T20 bowler, because it's a format where he sort of comes in and out. He quite often will play, will go long stretches without playing the format, but then comes in and generally does seem to be able to adapt very well.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, because if we draw on another example, is Josh Hazlewood. Remember when we said he couldn't play, well, people said he couldn't play T20 cricket, and he comes in, you know where his ball is going to go, and he's just been superb. And Cummins has to find that zone. He hits a hard length, hits the splice of the bat. Occasionally, when the rhythm is right, he can go full. So I think he's experienced enough to evolve.
Okay, I think it's fun that we're actually going to have the power play breakdown chat while the power play is actually underway. Because Abhishek has charged down to mid-Stark. He took strike, by the way, gents, and charged down, didn't time it, and ran off for a single to mid-off. So that's how they want to play Stark out. Let's have that power play matchup conversation in Maruti Suzuki Arena presents Power Play Conversations. Right, we knew it's going to be Stark to start. Seen 2 balls. And let's get Pujara's verdict on, is it swinging, what the likely intent of the batter is going to be.
It looks like they are going to be a little smart against Mitchell Stark. They are just looking to time the ball. There is a little bit of swing away from the left-handers. He's trying to pitch it up. But if you see that they're not trying to go too hard against him, they are looking to time the ball, which is a big positive.
You mentioned it's good to have Kuldeep when Travis Head gets going. Let's assume he does. Kuldeep isn't one who usually bowls in the power play. In fact, in the last game, they even threw poor old Vipraj Nigam into the deep end against Nicholas Pura and had the chance go down and never bowled again.
Yeah, Kuldeep, not generally a power play bowler, but I suppose it depends to what extent Sunrisers do or don't get off to a flyer. I think if they were, let's say, 60 for none off 4 overs, then maybe that's when you're tempted to throw Kuldeep in there and say we need to take the gamble to get a wicket and get ourselves back into this game. Otherwise, you'd imagine it might be more seam heavy to start.
60? Did you say 60 in the power play?
Oh, 4, I said.
Oh, 4. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's on track because they're going at 18 and over now. A couple of boundaries to start with. Bish, time to get first innings scores in. You've had a couple of balls to look at, and does look like there's a measured yet
You're still doing this.
aggressive approach. Come on, first inning score. I can give you some assistance because
really?
ESPN Cricket Force forecaster is something that I plug at this point.
Right.
And I'm trying my very best to make it sound accurate. 194 at the start of the innings, it's now 196 forecaster.
212.
212.
12.
Puji,
I'm going 200.
200, okay, nice and round there.
Okay, 225.
225. Why not 222? All right, I will go 240. Yeah, I think they'll get these. They'll get the big runs that they made an impression of getting now. Bish, thank you very much. Cheteshwar Pujara, Matt Roller, more from you at the end of the Sunrisers innings, which always holds for good conversation. So join us then for analysis on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout.
How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.